Hi, I hope you had a really good time yesterday or over the last few days doing a bit of shading some cubes. Let me know what your thoughts are. I think it's easier to start off with three basic shades and then you can move into more. You can always add more. I'll be interested to see if you've done any pictures of the cubes or of tables, chairs, anything like that. That would be really good. This is the pepper that I've procured for today's lesson, and I'm also going to show you some other different types of shading that you could use. We'll start on this in just a second, and I will try a different angle so that you can see me as I work on it. So we'll get started. Okay, so we're gonna start by doing a little warm up like we did last week. Here's my hands, and this is the equipment I've got. So I've got a pepper, HB, 2B and 4B. A rough bit of paper first, because we're just going to do the same as we did last week. What we are going to do is I'm going to use the 2B to start with, and we're going to do circular motions. We're just going to warm ourselves up just by quickly doing this. And that is because we are going to be doing something that's round in shape. But I am going to quickly show you in a minute some other different types of shading that I mentioned briefly in the last lesson. Okay, so that was from the wrist. Just move the pepper out of the way a minute. This is from the elbow, so it's quite a big. You see how I'm keeping my hand straight? I'm not really moving it. All the movement's coming from my elbow. You just do it so you can just get that in, and I quite like this. It's quite therapeutic, and you end up with like a donut stroke apple type shape. So if you just do that for a little while, I'm just going to cut short there, and what I'm going to move on to next is very quickly, if you remember, doing the boxes. So I'm going to do those boxes. I'm just going to do a few different ones, and then we can just go over the shading that I mentioned last week. Okay. So the first one, we pretty much use the side of the pencil. Again, we're doing dark, medium and light. And just to reiterate that, we just went over there. So you can just see this one's non-specific shading. And then with the medium, you're doing a similar type of thing, but not pressing on so hard. So just do it fairly roughly. Now, next one we're going to do is a simple line, well, crosshatch actually. So again, you see with those quick lines, like we practiced last week, and then for the medium, I'm leaning on it just as hard. The only difference is I'm spacing the lines out, so it looks paler, and you can see that rough effect. I'm doing this very quickly so we can move on to the pepper itself. So you could also try, this is like a kind of like fur type one where it's a bit more textured. So but you can, I mean, there's loads of different ways that you can use to shade. And some of them it's just as simple as not pressing quite so hard. there you have it. And then for the last one, you could do dots. So obviously I'm not going to do all of them because I haven't got the time. But you could just, obviously if you filled that and you've got away, I think this is quite it eats up a lot of time if you're doing the dots, trust me from experience. Now moving on to the pepper, before I show you a little video with me actually doing this drawing, just wanted to give you a few hints and tips. So your pepper is it's nice because there's no straight lines in it virtually at all. I suppose you could say these bits are fairly straight, but essentially you've got some nice sort of like round shapes. So what I want you to look at is kind of like the best way to try and show you. So just do it roughly, like you can see it's made of like those pieces, so you can start blocking it in. Now this is an unusual one because this is like using the very centre, whereas I would ask you to draw it at an angle like this, maybe, so you maybe get a little bit of the green head, but then the rest of it you get as well, so you can do some of these shines on it. Now with this one as well, have a look at what I do in the video coming up. It's a speeded up one, but also I'm looking at using more than just the dark, medium and light. So I'm sort of like bridging the gaps between them. But just go for the rough shapes. So you're starting to see, you know, those are the kind of shapes, and because you'll be seeing it from a slightly different angle than I am, and you sort of like get this. So I've just sort of like done the highlights, and these bits go on like this, and then you've got kind of like, it's got lovely kind of like shapes like that shape there, and it's kind of like that. And I want you to just practice, because this is just rough. The whole point of drawing is to enjoy yourself, and the way to do that is just to practice. So you're starting to get these lovely shapes of the pepper in. So again, this is kind of like, it doesn't even matter if you draw on top of it, because the aim of the game is that you're just practicing. So you're getting that, and then you can start sort of like putting highlights in where the lighter bits are. And go from there. Right, I'm going to show you a video now of me doing a speeded up picture of this pepper, and then I shall do a little roundup at the end. Okay, many thanks. See you shortly. Okay, so this is me penciling the pepper in initially, just to get it in the, so that I'm happy with the layout. I'm going to be building up the picture as I go, putting in sort of like highlights, and then starting to build up the darker areas, just repeatedly basically. So you're sort of like looking where the shadows are, and then putting some initial shading in, and then as you're going along you keep on darkening the areas that are darker, because what you want is to have a real scale. So you've got, if you look at the image, if you look at the pepper on the desk there, you can see you've got those really brilliant almost white highlights, and then you've got some really dark red, almost black tones as well, and then you've got a whole scale of other ones in between. So as I'm going, I'm sort of like working between those two. So I'm going from the lightest to the darkest, moving along, and keeping on darkening the darker shading areas, so that it makes the lighter areas stand out, and so that I can put in some more of those paler tones. So I'm using a mixture here between HB, 2B and 4B pencils. So the really pale tones are just very lightly sketched in with the HB, and the darkest tones are the 4B that I'm working with there. Yeah, if you've got a rubber, it's a good idea just to have one on standby, just so you can, because sometimes you might smudge a little bit, and you don't want to do that, so you can just remove those marks. As you can see, I'm working on that, building up the dark tones, and that itself brings out the lighter areas that you're actually essentially leaving. So you're getting all kinds of lovely shades and patterns across the pepper's skin, and then just keep on, like I say, just keep on building up those dark points, and that helps with the lighter points because it just provides that contrast. So when you're doing it, try it a few different times. I tried it sort of like a couple of different times over the last few days because it's nice to get back into drawing, and it's drawing different things. I quite often draw animals, if you've seen some of my other stuff, but I also enjoy drawing people and all kinds of other things, and even sort of like still life. It's lovely to do. Anyway, so that's me just finishing off the shading there, so it's nearly done. Have a few goes and see what you think. Okay, so in this lesson we've been looking at some simple shading of a simple object, the pepper. If you haven't got a pepper, don't worry, you could use an orange or an apple or something like that, but I quite like the way you get the shine on the peppers, and it's just quite an interesting thing to do because it's a bit wiggly, whereas the orange or apple, totally okay to use them, but they can be a little bit more boring in comparison. So from that, hopefully you'll feel a bit more confident. Remember, everything you do, it's practice, practice, practice. When I do lessons, I just tell people, because they go, oh no, what about this? I've got this wrong. Don't worry about it. Learn from your mistakes. Enjoy what you're doing. And then you look back and you just think, all right, that's how to do it. That's how to do it. And it'll all start to click into place because anybody can draw. It just takes practice. That's all it is. So practice doing the shading. You could try some other kind of fruit if you wanted. I hope you've enjoyed my little video. Obviously if you did, could you please like and share, and it would be amazing if you haven't seen it before, subscribe, and you can see the rest of my Learn to Draw drawings that I've been, Learn to Draw videos, sorry, that I've been bringing out. Okay, many thanks, bye bye.